Hello to everybody. I'm happy to greet all the participants of the international conference on science and technology research. My name is Liudmyla Gryzun, and I'm a full professor of Information System Department of Simon Kuznets Kharkiv National University of Economics, Kharkiv City, Ukraine. Also, I'm a president of Science Technology Research Association, which is really a great honor for me. The topic of my keynote presentation of today's lecture, today's meeting, is the problems of training of the university newcomers in terms of emergency situations. Definitely the topic of my presentation is not occasional one. And I'm going to to cover urgency of our research, also theoretical framework, experience of blended learning activities enhanced with interactive methods exactly for university newcomers, and to cover in short results and discussion in terms of students' learning motivation. In terms of urgency of the research, so it's clear that the complicated reality during the COVID pandemic and lockdowns has caused drastic changes in all fields of our lives and definitely influenced a lot of the education processes. In fact, pandemic is going on, and it's also an emergency situation. Current emergency situation in Ukraine associated with the military conflict with Russia has also caused necessity to search new approaches for providing efficiently educational services at school and universities. Most of our educational establishments in Ukraine have to work in a remote mode and provide distant learning for the students who are physically disconnected both from their teachers and their peers. Because the vast majority of our students, they are now refugees, and they stay in different countries, but they also choose to study in our Ukrainian universities. And we have lots of university newcomers who go on studying in Ukrainian universities, So for us, it's incredibly urgent problem. In terms of emergency, also it's important to notice that distant or blended learning has had many benefits, especially enabled flexibility of teaching and learning anywhere and anytime. However, recent studies detected significant differences between well-planned, carefully designed online studying and sessions held in response to crisis or disaster. Moreover, in emergency situations, these designed processes are absent, in fact. There are indicated several students' difficulties and limitations of online learning on conditions of emergency. They are common for the majority of university students, and they are overcoming is really challenging for the teaching staff. However, these difficulties are even more challenging for university newcomers, first-year students who have entered university during emergency situations. And it is clear that this is a special category of students which need special exact support and adaptation to new conditions of their learning life. So theoretical framework which is behind our research, is made by the building of university newcomers profile in order to understand what exactly to overcome. We need to know what are their background, what are their challenges, expectations, and what problems, what difficulties we have to overcome. Then it's also basics of blended learning theory and fundamentals of motivation theory, partially also made theoretical framework of our work. Sorry. Building a university newcomers profile in order to realize true challenges and learning difficulties, we had to answer the set of questions. What kind of person we are? What is their background? What were their conditions of starting social life and community before university? And how have they changed at university? What are their targets, motivation? And what are their potential challenges in the current conditions of starting at a new place and at online learning during emergency? Answering these questions, we could conclude that a typical university newcomer is a yesterday high school or college trainee who is not a teenager yet, but not an adult person. And they're definitely more determined and motivated than school children, but they still need to be stimulated, to be interested in the subject of learning. At university, newcomers bump with lots of novelties at study. The enormous capacity of new information and higher demands to their level of knowledge and skills, unusual forms of studying, special system of assessment, everything, all of these things are really unusual for newcomers. Advanced teaching staff who are mostly top-level scientists and researchers, and definitely it is completely new students community which is disconnected from each other. That is the real conditions, true conditions of studying for our university newcomers. Novelties of studying are complicated also with the peculiarities of online learning. Instead of eye-to-eye emotional and fruitful communication with the teacher, they obtain only distant contact when the teacher is separated from you and cannot give trainees immediate feedback to some unclear or challenging points of the material. Also, the newcomers appeared to be physically disconnected with their group mates to overcome current difficulties in learning, to explain to each other something in simple words or on some primitive examples. They are deprived of such a possibility, such an options. And finally, they feel the lack of communication, common verbal communication. They appear to be isolated and deprived of habitual social life, which was true also during pandemic, and for lots of our students who are nowadays are refugees, it's also a great challenge for them, and should be definitely taken into account. Talking about the theoretical background of blended learning in general, we have to conclude that there are distinguished lots of advantages and disadvantages of blended learning. Despite the obvious advantages like flexibility, openness, raising of trainees' motivation and independence, there are also great challenges of successful implementation of blended learning. Among them, there is lack of proper awareness about the blended learning paradigm, non-satisfactory didactic and methodological provision, and definitely involving students into active form of work, adding classroom spirit and overcoming physical disconnection is maybe greatest challenge of successful implementation of blended learning, especially in terms of conditional emergency situations. As for my personal experience of overcoming challenges of blended learning implementations in terms of emergency, I distinguish maybe some special set of challenges which I decided to overcome, which is really important exactly for university newcomers, to add classroom spirit into online classes, to involve students into active forms of work, to facilitate their adaptation and raise their learning motivation, or at least to retain it. And it's obvious for me that in order to meet these challenges, we need to apply interactive methods, this or that interactive method. And now I'll try to cover these ideas in in close relationship to practice of blended learning at my universities. The matter is that the blended learning model for current situation is so-called flex model. It looks like the distant learning in Moodle-like platform with Zoom online classes according to common schedule. So all the materials, all the necessary tasks, theoretical materials, they are available in the so-called PNS system, personal learning system. At my university, it's distant learning system, and it is accompanied with online Zoom classes, which are held according to common schedule. Typical blended learning activities which are recommended by researchers to use, these are flipped learning, gamification, digital storytelling, etc. I have to say that these typical blended learning activities, according to studies and from my own experience, they are really efficient. However, under this situation, they must be enriched with different kind of interactive techniques. Common interactive techniques which might be used here, there is lectures of selected kinds, game methods, debate methods, group solution method, and project making, and many others. And minding this necessity to enrich blended learning activities with interactive methods, we also need to keep in mind different types of interactivity which exist actually in the typical tutorial process. There is student learning object type of interactivity, student teacher type of interactivity, and also students teacher type of interactivity that expects involving the students into the interaction among themselves and individual student with other students in the group, in the presence of the teacher or without him in real time. Definitely the last type of interactivity is the highest one, and I'd like to realize to meet exactly this type of interactivity. In this context, interactivity mission can be seen as some mean or some tool to break ice between the teacher and the students and among them as well, to promote the interaction, to involve them, at least virtually, into special kinds of activity which are beneficial for their active learning and can lead finally to deep understanding of the complicated problems, and on the other hand, to compensate the lack of a habitual communication. They will distinguish some theoretical and practical issues which can be learned by the students in small groups or in pairs independently and in advance. And the task for them was to prepare the presentation which had to cover specific list of issues. So in terms of flipped learning activity, it's quite typical practice to assign tasks beforehand to make students to get ready to potential theoretical and practical classes. So the students were provided with the list of the topics for presentations and their common outlines. Then during lecture classes of specific special types and on specific topics, they were organized as mini conferences where each small group of students or each pair of students delivered via Zoom their presentation, while the rest of the students were active listeners who had to find out answers on some questions during listening. For example, how exactly we tried to enrich flipped learning activity with interactive techniques. During the course Basics of Interface Design, flipped learning lecture, for example, on the topic of psychological mechanisms of data perception, was arranged in the form of online mini conference, and digital tools which we used there were video conferences services. One of them, Zoom, for example. It might be used also other conference services. It doesn't matter, in fact. And flipped learning lecture in the form of online mini conference was organized in a special way. They were assigned in advance different tasks to the pairs of students. The tasks were mostly to learn theoretical material on the features of different data perception, to find out proper examples which illustrate peculiarities of human vision and their connection with interface design, to elaborate presentation, to take part in the mini conference, both as presenters or experts and listeners. One of the tasks of pair of students presenters was to learn psychological background of human perception of textual information. And during online mini conference, the presenters shared their findings on this topic. They explained that the efficiency of reading depends on linear way on the amount of characters visible by eyes. They also covered the reason of this fact based on psychological background and attracted the listener's attention to the paradox of this cognitive and psychological phenomena, and tried to focus on the idea of so-called content-based interface and task-based interface. Listeners during this online conference, they were encouraged by presenters and by the teacher definitely to discuss the connection of these findings from psychology with the problems of efficient interface design. They were attracted to speculation and making conclusions on the efficiency of perception of isolated words and words connected into the long phrases, the difference between task-driven and content-driven user interface, and how it is connected with the typographic decision-making and the interface design, etc. Presenters, after that, supported the prepared discussion with the visual examples of the both types of user interface, illustrating fruitful and non-fruitful using of these psychological peculiarities. Definitely, according to our observations, the students revealed great enthusiasm, responsibility, and concentration of attention during these online conferences and during preparation in terms of flipped learning, which is quite difficult to achieve during typical online lecture. All of the students prepared their presentations applying some additional materials, included some extra visualization to clarify some complicated issues, and they tried to follow the outline of presentation prepared or recommended by the teacher. They covered all the necessary issues, and they tried to do it. It was obvious that they followed this outline. The listeners were active enough in asking questions and in the interaction with their peers during the discussion. It was obvious that they were concentrated during the presentation, and they tried to extract much important information to apply it in future and to exchange their knowledge with others. Presentation and participation in discussion both were estimated according to specially prepared scale, and it was definitely bonuses for students. They were quite happy with it also. Another different gamification technique within classcraft environment was also enriched with the team role game activities. So in terms of blended learning technique, it was gamification. Interactive method which we tried to apply, it was team role game activity, and digital tool for this work was classcraft environment. If to say in a few words, that classcraft, there is game online environment which allows to maintain gamification approach during any academic period and enables any student to go through the course sections, in fact any course section, no matter which course is, so to go through the course sections individually or within the group, overcoming practical tasks, tests, and quests specially prepared by the teacher for all of the course modules. During this work, they obtain game bonuses of different types, which accumulate their scores. So, as an example, I'd like to say that each student within this environment should choose a character, a role of a wizard, warrior, healer, some others, with proper skills and cooperatively learn a topic while doing quests. The students applied their skills regarding their role. They tried to contribute the best into the team success, doing quest tasks and obtaining different bonuses, which gave their participants various additional opportunities. And also they helped their team to achieve common learning result in the most efficient way. And I'd like to say that it was really beneficial for lots of students, and the combination in group of quite weak students and strong students also contributed a lot to the communication and the common work upon the tasks of the course, and could lead the team to common success, which was really enthusiastical and really rewarding. Similar scene within classcraft, it was both battles test solving, also in groups with the same ideas of intercommunication. Also group work upon the real life tasks, extending the gamification activity in Figma environment. So it was organized in the progress of learning how to create a prototype of the site, for example, with landing pages. The students were assigned special tasks. Imagine that you are director of coffee company, which is a new player in the coffee trade market, and the company wants to create a site to talk about the coffee, about the company, services, offers, and so on. To solve this problem, the students were divided into the groups of analytics, developers, and testers, according to the roles which are typically fulfilled by interface designers at the different stages of the prototype development. The teacher encouraged interaction within groups and between groups via debates based on Socratic method of discussion. And for example, here you can see some episodes of Zoom discussion in groups within the groups of analytics, designers, and testers. And for example, in a group, in the analytics group, There were debates which were organized as a set of questions, and so the teacher encouraged the discussion within any groups. Thanks Zoom, nowadays it's possible to divide students and break them into different rooms, and these discussions, the teacher works as a facilitator of these discussions within each of these groups. So in analytics group, they were offered to discuss questions like this one: who are your potential users? What may be their age, education needs, and so on? What tasks do the users expect to solve via this site, and some others. Also, they were included questions like this one: how can the collected information about users and potential behavior on the site help the group of developers? And is these results essential also for a group of testers and some others? These kind of debates gave the finally understanding of their role, students' role in the whole interactive process, iterative process of the prototype design, allocation the roles within the group with understanding by each member of the group their own duties, and minding responsibilities and scope of necessary interaction with members of other groups. Similar discussions were also, and debates were also held in two rest of the groups. So another quite interesting blended learning technique, which was also enriched with group activity, was digital storytelling, and interactive method was chosen as a group activity. In terms of digital tools, it's good to use teleconference services, digital boards, and Figma environment as an instrument for creating digital stories. For example, in terms of learning basics of interface design, it was offered special group task creation of comic-based digital story with a didactic post to investigate the influence of color palette on the emotional state of a user and implementation of its impact in the user interface development. Such a task was offered to students, and again, in groups, it was discussion was for group solution finding, and it included the set of questions which are given on the screen, and these kind of questions encourage students to think over and to create their digital story together. So digital storytelling activities organized in such a way afterwards of creation of their digital story, each of the groups demonstrated their comics and told, in fact, their digital story during online practical classes. Other students were involved into the critical watching of their peers' work, and ready-made digital stories were used, in fact, as cases that enable to involve all of the students into productive case studies. After that, these digital stories, could be successfully used as digital aids for further generation of students. And in fact, this was really rewarding for students. They were really proud of that fact that their digital story is going to be used for different other students as a didactic aid. So, to sum up our observations and, in fact, our attempt to enrich typical blended learning activities with different interactive methods, I'd like to conclude that applied interactive methods enable to the students to feel the classroom atmosphere during online classes, promoted their cognitive eagerness to work with remote digital resources, contributed a lot into the into development of efficient learning communication, which helped overcome disconnection between the students and their feeling of disconnection inherent to blended learning, and which we tried to overcome, in fact. Okay, also applied interactive methods were really beneficial for university newcomers. They were involved into active participation in the educational process, which included individual knowledge mining, knowledge and skills demonstration for peers, and finally, self-estimation and peers estimation, which allowed to reduce limitation of online learning for newcomers and make smoothly their adaptation to the university study. So also we tried to analyze and to understand how these activities influenced the motivation to learn it, students' motivation to learn it. Motivation to learn, according to psychology, is defined as the personal efforts which encourage to learning activities, ensure their continuity, and point direction to the activities with the aim at achievement of students' desired goal. And again, according to psychology, the most common factors that affect motivation in the process of learning, they are attention, appealing to a learner's past experience, positive attitude, and satisfaction. And in fact, we used these ideas of motivation theory in order to create a kind of survey in order to estimate the level of students' motivation to learning and to prepare our full survey. Yeah, the survey was the preliminary survey was designed to evaluate whether the interactive methods introducing into the blended learning activities is in the line with the four mentioned rules and factors of motivation, and detect what students' motivation levels are. So this survey consists of 20 items comprising 4 subsections for each of the factors: attention, appealing to learners' past experience, positive attitude, and satisfaction. Each subsection included 5 items to get a feedback from the students on each motivation dimension. It measures learners' motivation level by applying a 5-point Likert type scale, where 1 means strongly agree and 5 means strongly disagree. To obtain and test the design survey reliability, it was conducted. This survey was conducted in one of the groups of newcomers who completed one of the curricular forms into course in terms of blended learning activities enhanced with the interactive methods and built according to our modules depicted above. In total, there were 27 students who took part in the survey, and the scale reliability test was conducted to estimate the result. The reliability of all of 4 scales for each motivation dimension on standardized Cronbach alpha was obtained 0.75, which proved an acceptable reliability level of the obtained result. And finally, so this survey is in progress, in fact, yeah, and we can't give some final conclusions. However, as for preliminary results of the survey, I have to say that about 70% of our trainees admitted that they attended online classes with desire because they were used variety of gripping activities. Communication with other students during debates and discussion helped hold their attention, and the course stimulated their curiosity. Over 50% of the students said that during the course doing they were involved into work upon the tasks, which demonstrated them how this course course material would be useful for them in potential professional life. About 63% of the course participants revealed positive attitude to learning, and they also admitted that team interaction during material mastering suggested them confidence in their abilities. And about 72% said that they were pleased to work on the course in such a friendly and cooperative atmosphere. I have to say that these results seem to me really rewarding, and we are going to go on our survey and learning of results of motivation level for all of the students. Here, I'd like to say thank you to everybody for your attention, and I'm ready to answer your questions. Thank you very much.